how's it going? Today we're going to play the updated future deck. The newest set gave us Iron Thorns EX, which shuts off all abilities except future Pokemon when it's in the active spot. And its attack for Lightning Double Colorless does 140, and we move an energy from this Pokemon to the bench. And it also has a 4 retreat cost, so it can use Heavy Baton as well as Iron Hands, so now we have an extra Heavy Baton user. So we're going to want to go second and accelerate with Miraidon, or in certain matchups we can just put the Iron Thorns, like against Lugia we can put the Iron Thorns EX in the active, and they can't really do anything, so we can just manually build it up. That's why we're playing a Penny, so we can take any other Pokemon out of play and can like completely lock down the board if we can draw into it. But this card is going to help our matchups against decks like Raging Bull Ogerpon, which we probably would never be able to beat without it. It'll also help our Charizard matchup, and Lugia was already pretty good, but now it's just kind of free. And of course we have 4 of the Iron Crown, which lets all of our future Pokemon do 20 more damage. Iron Hands for Lightning Colorless does 160, and for Lightning and 3 Colorless does 120, but we take an extra prize. So with all the damage modifiers, we can do up to 220 and take an extra prize, which is kind of nuts. 2 Miraidon, which for Colorless does 40, accelerates 2 energy to our future Pokemon. And Mew for a little bit extra draw power, lets us draw up to 3 cards in our hand once a turn. We can also move energy like with Heavy Baton to the Mew, so we can copy our opponent's attacks with Genome Hacking. And Iron Bundle is there just so we can get it with Radar, and it can move like a bulky Pokemon out of the way to bring up a small Pokemon for Iron Hands to take an extra prize on. And yeah, basically I opted for the Penny for 2 reasons. We can like high roll drawing into it with any deck that Iron Thorns is good against and just make our board 2 Iron Thorns, and control like Snorlax is pretty good right now, so I wanted to have an option that they couldn't get out of our hand with Eerie. It also can heal some damage off against Dragapult, just all around pretty good. We have 4 Arven, 4 Research, 2 Iono, because this deck is basically made of bricks and we need a ton of draw supporters just to even like hope to draw into them. I have a Town Store and a Lost Vacuum. I noticed a lot of people weren't playing any stadium outs in their future deck, and then you just lose to one of the jamming towers or whatever that stadium is that shuts tools off, because this deck is very reliant on tools. We have a Psychic and a Super Rod so that we can attack with any of our Pokemon except for Iron Bundle, but we can attack with Iron Crown and snipe the bench or something. We can also set up Miraidon to do the 160 attack, which can be pretty good. 160 with the damage modifiers up to 260 with a single prizer is really good. But that is the deck, so let's get into the games. Alright, we're up against Raging Bolt. We won the coin flip and picked to go second, which is pretty good. They put a lot of pressure on going second. I guess if we had like a perfect hand and we could get an Iron Thorns in the active going first, we might be able to just completely shut down their whole deck. But as of right now, if I can Techno Radar for 2 Iron Thorns, then hit a generator, I can just penny up this Miraidon and kinda shut them down for the game. But I'm just checking what energy they have in their hand. They're definitely attacking next turn. I did prize one of my Iron Thorns, so I can't really do what I was planning to do, but I could still attack with it if I hit a generator, but I don't. There's like 12 Lightning Energy in this deck, so there's pretty good odds we hit it, but sometimes you miss, and now I'm just kind of stuck as to what to do. I have a follow-up supporter for next turn. I can't risk just pennying up the Miraidon and having them knock out my only Pokemon in play. I would just lose. Alright, so I Arven for a generator and a Heavy Baton, and in hindsight that's kind of a mistake. I should have Arven for a Techno Radar and gotten 2 Iron Crowns, because then I could hit into this Raging Bolt for 80 and then knock it out with the Iron Crown next turn. But I put the Psychic onto my Miraidon because if they're able to boss up my Iron Thorns, I can move 1 Lightning to the Miraidon and still be able to knock them out with 2 Iron Crowns in play. So I'm kind of banking on them like hitting a Catcher Heads or having Prime Catcher. I don't know. I'm just hedging my bets, I suppose, because this deck does also play a Vacuum. And if I didn't put this Psychic on this Miraidon, if they went like Boss or Prime Catcher, Vacuum my Heavy Baton, I would just lose the game on the spot. But they do knock out my Iron Hands EX, so now I'm going to want to knock them out with Miraidon to put them on odd prizes. And now I can immediately Iono them to 4, which would be very nice. And hopefully I just draw at least a Techno Radar off of the Iono. And I was just thinking about maybe attacking with the Iron Thorns, because it would be nice to shut off their abilities, but I think putting them on odd prizes is a little too valuable right now. So I do draw the Radar, and I get rid of the Arven because I have a research for next turn that I'm going to want to use. And I'm going to want to probably just Techno Radar away either... Oh, I grab... Oh, I only need... Wow. I just had like a huge brain fart. With the Future Capsule, I can get a backup Pokemon and an Iron Crown. Wow, that was kind of dumb. Yeah, so I can still knock them out with that and not risk having something to move my energy to if they knock out my Iron Thorns, but I'm not sure if they're really going to want to go out of their way to bring that Pokemon up. And they mill a Raging Bolt. They throw a Sada back in their deck, which makes sense, because they know that I'm going to put a Iron Thorns into my active spot next turn. And that really kind of messes with this deck. They want to draw with their Ogre Ponds and their Greninjas. And the Ogre Pond is like a really helpful form of draw support, because you can draw 2 to 3 extra cards every single turn, which like you can draw into your trekking shoes and get through your deck even more. It makes your Pokegears that much more likely to hit. It's like really an important card in the deck. They bench another Raging Bolt and go down to 0 cards in hand. So it looks like we're not getting attacked this turn, which is definitely very nice. Oh no, they are going to knock me out. But they're kind of removing almost all their energy from play, which I don't know how good that is for them. That puts them in a really weird spot. And it's not like I was going to be able to knock out their Raging Bolt this turn. We top deck the Prime Catcher. That you really hate to see that. I have to get rid of it because, I don't know, I have what I want in the active. I don't want to bring anything else up. I'm just debating what cards to thin out of my deck. And now I think I'm going to bench all of these Iron Crown because I can't do math. And I think that I'm knocking them out, but I'm not. So now I'm going to Counter Catcher. Oh my god, this turn was a mess. Looking back on this was really bad. I'm just double checking. For some reason I had like completely convinced myself that I was knocking them out, but I was thinking that I could knock them out with the Miraidon's 160 attack if they knocked out my Iron Thorns. So now I also really need them to not be able to knock out this Iron Thorns this turn, because I really want an extra turn to build up some extra energy in play and whatnot. Alright, so they put down the Sandy Shocks, which is why I like the Slitherwing better, because they could just knock me out if that was a Slitherwing and they had a Sada. But they do concede. They saw they weren't going to be able to knock me out, and I was pretty close to winning that game. So that's just a perfect example of how Iron Thorns can completely shut down your opponent, and on to the next game. Alright, so we won the coin flip and opted to go second. As always, this is like one of the decks you just always go second with. I don't really see much of a reason to ever go first with this deck unless you want a high roll being able to get Iron Thorns into the active in certain matchups, but we only play 2, so it's not that good of odds. But start off with a Techno Radar. I can completely fill my bench, and I have to play down my hand all the way and Mew for a couple. So I'm even going to Techno Radar away this Arven, fail it, and Mew for 3, just trying to hit energy. And I basically only hit energy, so I'm going to throw a energy onto the Iron Hands, because I can knock out the Matangs for 2 prizes. And I tend to grab the Psychic first against matchups where, like against Control, you want to leave it in the deck to put on whatever Iron Crown they put in the active. But in other matchups, you want to thin it out of the deck to leave more Lightning Energy in the deck for your generators. Looks like they're kind of off to a slow start here. And they're going to boss and bring up my Iron Crown. Hit it for 120. This kind of sucks because my hand's dead and I top deck a card I can't even play. If there was anything I could put into the, like, play the Super Rod, I would have played it. But there's no Pokemon or energy in the discard pile. And they successfully bought themselves a turn, which is really what they needed with such a slow start. They opt to not even attack, which I kind of like that play. They're thinking I couldn't get out of the active last turn, why would I be able to this turn? And I should play this Radar, maybe get rid of the Super Rod. I could have gotten rid of the Counter Catcher too, but that could definitely come in handy. and I just draw more nothing. This is a perfect example of why there are 10 supporter card or draw supporter cards in this deck, because this is how it draws sometimes. And I was kind of against Arven in this deck originally, but the more I played it, I see like you get hands like this off of research. You just draw like the past 6 cards that I've drawn, and you just wish you had an Arven to pick the radar or the whatever out of your deck. And now my opponent is really like getting going now. They're in a good spot. They have 4 energy on their Dialga, which is pretty scary. Another cool thing I can do in this matchup is if they were to prop like an Iron Hands with a Heavy Baton, I could put the energy onto my Mew and copy their V-Star. Because I don't have a V-Star of my own to use. And I have to send up my Miraidon to buy a turn because they get another turn. And I can't give them another 2 prizes, or that's just like admitting defeat on the spot. This is like, if they knock this out, it really doesn't mean anything because they still have to knock out 2 more Pokemon either way. I'm probably not going to put another 1 prizer in play unless I run into a situation where I need to accelerate energy because I have none in play, but at this point I have 2 attackers basically set up. So I don't think that's going to happen. I have my Mew. Mew, like I was saying, very good in this matchup. They have their Mew set up, which is not too good for them because I can one-shot their Mew. Their Mew can't like one-shot me with any of my attacks except for exactly copying my Miraidon's attack to knock itself out, but none of my other Pokemon do enough damage to knock themselves out. And they do retreat, probably because they recognize that they need to save their only Dialga to knock out whatever Pokemon I put in the active here, but I'm going to be able to Prime Catcher that up because I had it in my hand. I drew an Arven anyway, so I would have been able to get it either way. I'm just debating what I even need this turn, and I opt for a Nest Ball and a Heavy Baton so that I'm able to knock out that Dialga. I do need to do 220. I should probably play a Nest Ball first, yeah. Yeah, that guy's only doing 180. A generator, fail it. I have to future booster capsule my Iron Hands because I was out of radars, so I couldn't get down 2 Iron Crowns. And I can just Heavy Baton this Thorns. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Putting the Heavy Baton so early, I probably should have just held it. There's so many ways for this deck to find tool cards. And now I'm just committed to having the Heavy Baton on it unless I could Arven for Vacuum and a Capsule. And there is the radar that I was looking for, but yeah, so I don't know how I feel about that. I'm just trying to protect my energy at this point. They can't knock me out anyway, which is good for me. And I really wanted to get to a spot where I Iono'd them and started attacking with the Iron Thorns, but it does not look like that's going to come up right now. Because Ionoing them to 3, they can't draw with their Mew, they can't draw with their Greninja. This deck plays like 15 or 16 energy. And they do put an energy on their Beldum. And now they're going to copy my Iron Crown's attack with their Mew. Interesting. I'm not sure if this... I don't know if they were thinking like this extra damage would make it so that they could copy my Iron Hands attack and knock me out, but it doesn't. But I have another Arven, so I can get the Capsule and a counter catcher because I'm still behind on prizes. I can bring up their other Dialga, knock it out, and then I basically won the game from there. All I need to do is find a boss or knock out this Mew because that's all they can attack with. I hit 2 energy off of this. I don't know, I'm kind of thinking if I even want to put both in play, but these are my attackers for the rest of the game, so I might as well just commit the energy to them. And it would be great if I could knock this out with the Iron Thorns, but I can't because I committed that Heavy Baton to it. This is a perfect example of where I don't want the Heavy Baton on my Iron Thorns, and I could have capsuled it. Or no, I couldn't because I have to retreat anyway. So all that talking was for nothing. I would have at least had the option though. And now I'm just, I don't know, thinking. I'm like debating here if I should attack with the Iron Thorns and 2-shot it, but there's really no point of doing that I don't know why I was thinking so hard about that. This play basically just wins the game. Oh, I was worried that they could knock me out with Zamazenta here. And then I wouldn't have my Iron Hands to respond to the Zamazenta, but after I checked their energy, they're down 2 Rod, basically all their energy. So the chances they get a Zamazenta off are really low, and I think I'm going to live this turn. And even if they did get the Zam off, I think if I just promoted the Iron Thorns and attacked with it, like, I'm going to knock it out because I have the Iron Crown to modify the damage, and it shuts down their Greninja and their Mew, and I don't know. It was just in a really good spot. I think I overthought that play a little bit too much. But after playing this deck, I have seen people playing 4 Research, 4 Arven, and 4 Iono. The thing I don't like about that is when you play so many supporters, you draw into like only supporters, and you want to draw into item cards because you can only play 1 supporter a turn. So you really want to find the balance of where you're drawing into at least 1 supporter off your other supporters, but not 4 of them, because you want to find your items. You want to play all your items, play out your hand, and thin out your deck. And because back in the day, they used to play like 16 supporter cards in their decks, like draw supporters specifically. And you watch some of those old videos, and people are just drawing into like hands of supporter cards. But yeah, that was the future deck. I think it's pretty good. Iron Crown is a really nice addition. You can beat Charizard now. I would imagine your Dragapult matchup is fine as long as you get going it fast enough. And I do have the Penny to remove some damage if they like try to set up the Mew to get knocked out or something. Hope you guys enjoyed and have a good one.